Welcome to The Nation. I'm RATNAM. YUSMADI Yusoff is a lawyer from Penang who started in the courtroom but never stopped thinking about the bigger picture, how a country holds itself together and how disagreement can be part of democracy. Now, he served as a member of parliament and as a senator where he focused on Senate reform and took part in international panels on governance and democracy. Outside parliament, he founded the Rights Foundation, a platform focused on justice, dialogue and the idea that leadership should be rooted in values, not just authority. Now, he teaches political ethics and wrote a book exploring Anwar Ibrahim's approach to diplomacy through dialogue. Today, as Malaysia grapples with the question about identity, division and direction, he remains one of the more vocal voices pushing for understanding as a national principle, not just an ideal. YUSMADI, thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to start here. Decades in, we're still trying to define ourselves. We've talked about unity, but division still defines us. Prime Minister Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim has been pushing for a new kind of leadership, one based on dialogue. The question is, can it work? Hang on, yeah? You're the author of Anwar Ibrahim, Global Justice and Peace Through Dialogue. Today, what I'd like to do is explore what this leadership means for Malaysia. You've worked with Anwar Ibrahim for many years. You've studied his leadership, written about it. Today, I want to ask you, what does this idea of dialogue really mean? Can it shape who we are as a country? Are we even ready for it?
Thanks, Gerard. The way I look at it, what really stopped us to go beyond what it's supposed to be, or in my own words, to really unleash the real potential of Malaysia, is what I call in my own words, parochialism. Parochial. When I mean parochial, what I mean is this. Say, for example, my understanding about the others, very limited, depends on my interactions. And that interaction been designed unconsciously because of certain idea of planning. For example, Balik Pulau will remain as a rural area. Georgetown will remain as urban area. The day you decide to be so, the access to certain quality services, be it education, be it health, be it, I would say it can be entertainment as well, somehow is a kind of like double standard. And to a certain extent, to be fair, you know, it forms your thinking. I give, for example, where I grew up. Initially, I was so ignorant on many things. And to a certain extent, it created vengeance. Until and unless I went further. I went to the city, I studied there. Oh no, things not the way it's supposed to be. And accidentally, in 1998, you know, Reformasi at that time, I was forced by circumstances. I was with one of the biggest law firms. I didn't really plan to be a politician, but I was forced by circumstances. Then I was elected and somehow end up in the August Hall in Parliament. Then suddenly say, wow, this is a place where people decide, adakah anda bersetuju? Setuju, yes or no? That will determine the future of the country. And you know what? They just decided to do that, and minutes before that, they were in a cafe, having some talking. They went into the hall. Adakah anda bersetuju? Setuju. And that will determine the future of the country, and to a certain extent, it built the policy and the law of the country. So where I come from, I said, look here, if we just happy the way it been done this way, I think we fail to unleash the real potential of the country. When I say the potential of the country, the real potential of the Malays, the Indian, the Chinese, all the Malaysian. So how moving forward, what should I do? I said, look here, now I have to fight and quote unquote offer alternative to the power that be. But did we manage to do that? We managed to do that recently. But now the question, what's next? Okay, I'm humble enough to tell you, we don't have enough people yet who believe that, look, we need new playbook for the country. Some guys come to me, since we changed the country, YUSMADI, you must do this, YUSMADI, you must do that. I look at the person. Should I follow your 60 years experience and make this country, I don't want to say mediocre, still fail to unleash the real talent of the country? Or should, hey, come here lah, whatever you do it right, teach me, share with me, enlighten me, but what you do it wrong, let's redo lah, let's unlearn again lah. And for me, let's create a new playbook. Because I believe that this country has tremendous potential, Gerard. That's where I come from.
So you say let's create a new playbook, and we're talking about a book. We're also going to be looking at talking about a little bit about this book. But having said what you've said, create a new playbook. And coming from mediocrity, you said that word, we don't want Malaysia to be mediocre. But aren't we already living endemic mediocrity? All of us just buat kerja sambil lewa, like, okay, jalan lah, jalan. Okay, that's how we are as a nation. Plus, most of us don't even read. I think if you look at the stats of Malaysians reading a book on a yearly basis, it's very frightening. So how are we going to move forward in putting together a playbook?
Okay.
And I know where you're coming from. You're talking about dialogue. How are you even going to make this happen when it's a lot to do with division? All of us go to different schools, right? You've got your Tamil schools, your Chinese schools, your Catholic schools, your whatever else schools. And everyone's
Arabic
parallels, Arabic schools. Everyone is living, the parallel realities are just so many.
Okay. My take is this. Is that a problem? No, for me, it's a strength.
Okay.
Nowhere else in the world where you will see major civilization are interacting. What are the major civilization? The Muslim, the Chinese, the Indian, the European. And what's the keywords is happening in this country, which is not happening in other part of the world? The interaction is happening in the mainstream of social realm. For example, I'm interacting with you. We are talking bernama, We're not talking in one fringe media in the rural area. In the mainstream, the capital city. Can you imagine what kind of interaction going to happen here? The total effect of this interaction, which I think must happen at two levels. First, me and Gerard must interact at this level first. Break the ice. Then after that, we must collaborate on something, on the common ground. Then find the common ground for the bigger agenda, which beyond both of us. The bigger agenda is for the country. Okay, when I use the word dialogue, this one form of communication, which from my point of view, is not seeking for dominance, is not seeking for zero-sum game, is not seeking for winning or losing kind of game, but it look for one very fundamental thing, mutual understanding. When only then, through real understanding, we tend to respect the other more, to embrace the other more. Is this happening for the last 60 years? Yes, it's happened to a certain extent. That's why my mother, for example, she may go to the market, she made my Indian friend, he speak Tamil. He make my Chinese friend speak Hokkien. So for them, it's natural. So the conversation is real. But for me, if I can design as a policymaker, I want to do so. For example, now, is dialogue been happening in Malaysia for the last years? Yes. But let's say, for example, what the government has done. Take in 1995. The first time when Samuel Huntington wrote an essay, Clash of Civilization, as early as 94. Someone down here by the name of Anwar Ibrahim knows what's coming. Oh, this guy tried to promote that it's going to be a serious clash. But I don't believe it. He believed that it's not clash. He believed it's going to be synergy. The more you understand the others. All right. So what did he do? In 1995, as early as that, he brought Samuel Huntington here to come to Malaysia, together with Tu Wei Ming, the professor who expert of Confucianism. Why Confucianism? Because that's the dominance, I would say, not religion, values embraced by most Chinese Tianhua group. All right. In between, he brought so many other scholars. So he knows if we didn't encourage dialogue at that time, yes, we may agree with the thesis of Huntington. They're going to clash. Okay. But then, whether the clash is happening, it's still happening. A lot of Islamophobia still happening. Religious bigotry is still happening. Because why? Since 1995, you put him in jail. So no one is encouraging dialogue. So that's why when I was in Indonesia, they said, Yusmadi, here masyarakat Madani is so flourished. Yalah, he declared there in 1995. When he came back here, you put him in jail. No one promoting. No college masjid, most of the leaders in Indonesia are promoting masyarakat Madani. That's why there you see masyarakat Madani so flourish. But here it's not happening.
Right. It's not. Do you think it's gaining traction here?
It's getting traction. You mean now?
Do you think it's gaining traction in Malaysia?
Yes. Why? Because you need a leader who believes in something, and the leader with certain vision must shape the thinking, and more importantly, what you said, educate. At the end of the day, it's about education. If the education is about religious bigotry, if the education, or example, kita Melayu panggil teladan lah, the role model that you show in public is about dominance, is about silo thinking, is about, I use the word parochialism, narrow-mindedness. You cannot understand the others. But if you are there, I give for example, by default, I told you, when I joined Parti Keadilan, again, not by choice, by circumstances, but now I feel conviction, I was forced to, like, for example, speak in front of the Chinese people. I start with Ta Chai Hao from the island. it's not enough. Then I need to learn more further. So from there I learned, this is the way the Chinese thinking. Then suddenly when I went to the Indian community and I went to India, I had a short experience giving oration in Tamil Nadu. Then from there I learned, this is where certain thinking being built, because certain things you need to learn, you know. To say that whether I now master the intercultural interaction, not really yet. But for me as a country, the top leader must encourage.
Right.
So I think dialogue, for me, if a country promote dialogue, I think domestically it may encourage more understanding or maybe further understanding. As a region, it is proven when ASEAN, for example, with all multicultural ethnics in this region, we prove to the world this is the most stable region. And globally, I think, if you have a leader with full conviction and confidence, he went to Beijing, he talked about his conviction. He went to Berlin, he talked about his conviction. He went to Moscow, he talked about conviction. You know what's happened? That's why now all the top leaders are coming to this part of the world.
Correct. I hear you. I understand what you're saying. But if you look at it, if you look at what people, you look at all the articles that are coming out, they say this is getting more traction in Sabah and Sarawak than it is in the peninsula. People are slow to warm up with it. And it's very easy because now in the era of social media, everyone talks over each other. No one wants to listen anymore. So how are we going to make dialogue happen that way? And how are we going to ensure people like us in the media, in government media especially, ensure that there's a space for people to come in and speak? Of course, you know, adab, you have to be careful of what you say on the air, how you say it, but there must be a space for people to come in, whether they're in opposition or in the government. How do we make sure we make this happen in this next few years?
Without oversimplifying it, first of all, we must encourage like this, what we call it active interaction. Beyond the line. Beyond the line. I give for example, I may be trained in law, I may be a guy from kampong, but it doesn't mean I cannot interact with someone from the urban to understand, because the urban also have the same problem, urban poverty. I stay somewhere in Pantai Dalam there.
Right.
Some problems just as bad as a problem back home in my village. So for me, most of the same. But to appreciate, to understand it, you must go there and interact there. Rule number one, interaction. You must do consistently. Rule number two, now I taught you the first interaction from here to here. The second interaction, it goes to here, from here to here. We start thinking. But don't stop there. Once you go there, you must go the interaction up to this level. I give for example, my third interaction with GERARD may go another level. You know, I can call you Amma, Anne, Abang, apa semua, because that different level. But assuming you not even pass the first interaction throughout your life, as a children, as a school kids, as a professional, you not even have opportunity to interact beyond your line. What kind of person are you? And in Malaysia, can you imagine, from Perlis to Sabah, I'm telling you, there are a lot of, I would say, potential. But another last point is this. You said just now about adab whatsoever. Of course, it has to be guided by certain, what you say, okay, adab is some people is a Malay. No, certain civility, civil way, respect. But more than that, this is where I come from. I may be slightly different. I say, don't preconceive to that interaction. My interaction with GERARD or some other guy may have different synergistic element. Why should someone preconceive it? But our interaction must be guided on certain fundamentals. It has to be about justice. It has to be about freedom. It has to be about, for example, security of the country. It must be about making the country harmony, peace. So it cannot be just another interaction. It must be guided on certain agenda, which beyond your own, but is common ground for everyone. That the way I understand dialogue.
I'd like to move into a space called equality, and when we talk about equality in different parts of the world, there's a different understanding or different way of dealing with equality. Now, let's talk about equality in dialogue, giving that space or offering that space to both people in government and people in the opposition. You know, how do we make that happen outside the parliament? Because we seem to be waiting to shoot each other down every time we talk, and that's not dialogue. That's you know, waiting for waiting for the crosshairs to hit someone before you pull the trigger. And that's the way we were trained from.
That's just debate.
That's debate. So how do we change that? You know?
Okay, I give for example. Let's take a real example. When I was in Parliament, of course, people sometimes said, "Hey, you have to be, zero sum. You must shout in a certain way. Only that you get attention. If that is the way that you the idea of parliamentary leadership, then you get what you see today. But if assuming now Prime Minister is talking about parliamentary reform, for me the real challenge, Gerard, is not improving the infra, but to change the culture. The culture. So for me, I give for example now everything been structured to select committee, special chambers. So for me, if you go slightly detail, what will happen in the special chamber is different tone. You're going to be select committee, different tone. That's why in the mature democracy, if you see, let's say for example, the one you see in House of Lords or House of Commons, in that August House, people don't talk very much about detail, everything about certain ideas, argument. That's why you hardly see any shouting, But here, maybe previously, thing was not properly organized, where certain ideas need to be lumped together, full of generalization, full of symbolism whatsoever, in that August House. So, but then what happened since change of government? I was there. Let's say I have to give credits to MERDEKA Mulia. He created the special chambers. And then during my time, when I was a senator, I said, what to do for August House? People said Senate is the rubber stamp. It's meant purely for political rewards. I said, no. To be honest, this is the place where you can talk sense, because the people who are elected there under the Constitution, supposed to be. I say supposed because it's not happening yet. With a good career track records in their own profession. There has to be the best businessman, the best NGOs guy, the representative of their own communities. So much so, things can be discussed in a very sober, they call it sober, and agree on certain real argument. The question is that, whether it really happening in the hall, I said not yet.
Right.
Slowly. So another thing which I would like to tell those who really still hopeful for this country, certain change, it requires times, but you cannot stop there. But not many people are willing to wait. There's a problem. Right.
So now let's flip the script a little bit. So you are here talking with me, and you're bringing out your ideas as to how dialogue can happen. And I want to bring out two ideas here, just for you to expand a little bit. Saying if someone from the opposition is watching you talk, and if he has to explain people around him as to what you're saying, how do you think he'll be viewing it? That's one. And we always a doctor who's worked within the Majlis Sukan Negara told me this. If we want to have Olympic gold medalists, then we have to have more parks for people to walk and want to be in sports. That's grassroots, not having it, teaching them in school, making sure there's enough space for people to walk and exercise, and then it becomes culture like you were talking about. It has to become culture. So how do we, when you look at both of this, okay, how do we then teach the younger generation that, like, so if someone in the opposition is now watching this and saying what YUSMADI is saying, he's probably saying nice things because he's saying it for the current government. How do we sort of flip that script for people to understand that we're trying to bring a dialogue here, and how do we make space for these people to come and sit down and talk with us?
Very valid question, Gerard. You know why? I was at different position. I was in oppositions. Now, so-called, I was closely to the government that be. I no more member of parliament. When I was in opposition, rule number one, you must be careful in what you say and what you do. I give for example, for me to be elected unanimously by all senators beyond partisan line from the state and federal appointment, rule number one, I'm telling you based on experience. I have to be consistent and must be truthful to the subject matter. Despite there are certain issue whereby some senators also want me to behave in certain ways. So that's my first experience. Second experience is this. You as a leader, you make your own choice. You want to make the polarization further, problematic, or you want to be a person who solve the problem. Again, for example, in Parliament, I know if I shout with certain way, behave a certain way, I get media attention, I get the speaker attention, and in fact, I can become a overnight hero. But is that the choice that I want to make as a responsible leader? Back to your issue as ethical leaders. So for me, it must have certain ethics. But of course, the end of the day, whether this approach is still the majority approach, maybe minority, but we need to enlarge it. So back to the country, to tell you the truth, I happen to be in a country who happened to change government like Tunisia, I was in Ukraine, Actually, Gerard, the number of people who really want to do change responsibly is not enough. What they've been doing now, they want to enlarge that so-called the mid-career from the public and private sectors, maybe opposition and governments, to collaborate together to deliver the economic growth. But unfortunately, who is doing it? Who's doing that capacity building? Everyone expect that happen naturally.
Right.
But no one want to build it.
But it's also interesting that before we got into the studio, I was speaking to YUSMADI, and he pointed out that a lot of us, especially in English programs or in English broadcasts across Malaysia, whether it's the business radio or us, we think that we are affecting change with our conversations. But the real conversations actually happen in the national language and the, like Tamil, in Mandarin. These are where the real conversations need to take place. So how do we make that happen now? Because sometimes,
I give you my real experience.
Yes.
I was in Parliament.
Yeah.
I happened to study human rights when I was in US. I asked them, what's the gender in Malay? Gender in Malay? Gender lah. Male or female lah. Laki dan perempuan. I said, no. Gender studies more than that. Then I asked again, what is liberty? So why do you ask that? Yeah, it is in our Proclamation of Independence. What is democracy? I said, why do you ask that? Because before you asked me what is Madani, I said, now people ask me, is Madani is Arabic? I said, no, it's not. When in 1957, when someone asked you that this country is going to be built based on liberal democracy, you not even ask what is democracy. Why I say so? Because you're concerned only one, whether this subject matter will be effective or not to build my country, especially vis-a-vis my rule of law, vis-a-vis my health, vis-a-vis my education, vis-a-vis my security. So the rest is, it can be any names. But the question is this, the conversation is not about that anymore, Gerald. It's very much full of identity, ethnic politics. Today, the discussion must be, for me, for example, as I said to someone the other day, what is your dream for this country? I want to build a democratic, effective state. What does that mean? A state which deliver health to their people, which deliver education to their people, which deliver security for the people. If I go to, let's say, Lahad Datu, their concern is about security because they are at the borders. If I go to my friend in Balik Pulau, their concern is about property rights. So if the discourse is about delivering public goods, ataupun bahasa Melayu dia, manfaat rakyat, because I say public good, dia orang tak faham. I say manfaat rakyat lah. Only they faham. Okay. So to be a leader who can be contextual to the subject matter is not easy. I give for example, I'm born in Balik Pulau. I grew up, I studied in KL, in Selangor. I still remember day one, I came back, studied a friend of mine from Balik Pulau. He says, YUSMADI, you know why? They don't even understand what you are talking about. Huh? Why? You kena cakap pelan-pelan, one by one. Only then they can. You know what? Suddenly I realized, I don't even know how to converse to my own people. So I just simplify things. But Gerald, in the true sense, I said, a leader, first of all, must understand the denyut nadi rakyat. If you don't understand that, you're disconnected. Then from there, whatever you want to do is not effective. Then it applies to the language. Language is the outcome of it. Then the choice of a language. I give, for example, I still remember when I give speeches in the Chinese community. When I say, apa khabar? How are you? When I say, Ta Hao! How? You have to be like that, So when I was in Thousand Light, I have to say, I learned about Makal Sakti. I learned about Satyagraha. They were like, oh, you're like the Obama. Right. So the one I want to tell you, language matters. At the end of the day, you want to talk to the human being, to the person. Yeah.
So for us, this is one of the programs within the series of JIWA MERDEKA. Now, as we close in, as we start celebrating the MERDEKA month, you've written this book, and we're not here to promote this book. It's a book he's written. We're just here, So, talking about dialogue and what you've written, you've followed the Prime Minister before he was a Prime Minister very closely, and you know his thoughts. So, if we're going to speak about dialogue in the month or in the MERDEKA month, how would you explain this? In the next, we've got 3 minutes, and I'm going to give you the camera to say what you need to say in the next 3 minutes.
Okay, in the light of MERDEKA celebration, let's celebrate MERDEKA with understanding. And the way to understand further is through dialogue. What dialogue will bring to the country? It bring more understanding. After understanding, it bring more unity. When unity becomes strongly within the society, it built a very united nation. And if that happened from my point of view, it built more confidence and trust to the global community to come here to see, wow, this is the only place in the world where major civilization, multiracial, they can sit down together, learn from each other, not to see that as a problem. So for me, dialogue is, for me, the way to go, because you need to understand each other. Once you understand, you respect each other. That, for me, that's my idea of Merdeka. Merdeka, I mean, you can be gentleman to your friends. You can be gentleman to the others race. You can be, I would say, humane or civilized to whoever that be. Respect the elders. You cannot do that unless you understand something, and dialogue is the way to understand.
Right, so before we have dialogue in Parliament, we need to get there. You know, it's just not you appear in Parliament and you dialogue.
You need to be elected.
We need to get there. So what should policymakers, those of us in the press, especially in government press, think about with regards to making dialogue happen for people, just so we can get into that the swing of being able to dialogue, especially using government channels as a vehicle of dialogue? What would be your advice to us?
My not to say advice, sharing.
Yeah.
Inherently, tips. Betul. Inherently in society, by default, you have the government sector, you have the business sector, you have the civil society sector. And for me, I go a step further. There are people in the realms of culture, religion, to imam, priest. Even I saw the other day the mufti of the young mufti of Wilayah. I think very eloquent. You must some wisdom there. So for me, I recommend for anyone like you or maybe who holding the government support system, media, whatever, try to break this silo line, which is there. Not even have to change it, is there. And lastly, go slightly deeper. In between, there are people in the rural area, there are people also in the city, in the urban. Cross the line. Because why? Urban, we are talking about urban crisis, urban poverty. Countryside has always been seen as a baggage or access or burden to nation building. But for me, if you have a platform who can break this silo line, I believe there will be a new synergy which will benefit the country, and the country may end up somewhere beautifully, and inshallah, it may unleash the real potential of this country.
Right. So if you haven't read the book, go read the book. It's also very good for young people who are wanting to know a little bit about dialogue and understanding through the eyes of the Prime Minister. Now, Muhammad YUSMADI Yusoff joins us to talk about dialogue-driven leadership. Of course, this JIWA MERDEKA edition of The Nation on Bernama TV is something that we're doing in the month, or rather this month, to celebrate, or as we step into our MERDEKA celebration, also Malaysia Day, we want to try to bring up a lot more dialogue, and we hope to bring more people in here to discuss this even further. I'm Gerard RATNAM. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow us for conversations on issues that matter only on Bernama TV. Thanks for staying with us.
Malaysia madani, rakyat disantuni, timur, barat, selatan dan utara. Malaysia madani, hai bersatu hati, kita semua sama Malaysia.
Satu hati.